Introduction: Reclaiming your life from the noise. Imagine for a moment that your attention is a bank account. Every morning you wake up with a deposit of mental energy. It is a finite amount meant to fund your work, your relationships, and your dreams. But in the modern world, something has changed. Every notification, every ping, every scroll, and every breaking news alert is a withdrawal. For most of us, we are overdrawn by 10 a.m., yet we wonder why we feel spiritually and mentally bankrupt at the end of the day. Welcome to the clock and the cloud, managing time in the age of distraction. We are living through a unique tension in human history. On one side, we have the clock, the industrial reality of deadlines, meetings, and 24 hours in a day. On the other side, we have the cloud, the digital reality of infinite information, endless demands, and zero boundaries. The clock is finite. The cloud is infinite. When you try to manage the infinite cloud with the finite clock, the result is anxiety, burnout, and the nagging feeling that you are falling behind no matter how fast you run. This audiobook is your guide to resolving that tension. This is not just about organizing your calendar or color-coding your to-do list. It is about organizing your mind. It is about reclaiming the driver's seat of your own life. Over the course of this program, we're going to move from foundational mindset shifts to daily tactical systems and finally to mastering long-term peace in a hyper-connected world. We will channel the wisdom of time-tested principles and apply them to the specific challenges of the digital age. Now, a quick note on how to listen to this program. I designed this specifically for the person in motion. You might be driving to work, running on a treadmill, or navigating a busy commute. You do not need a pen and paper. You do not need to pause and complete complex worksheets. The principles here are designed to be absorbed mentally and applied immediately. We are going to build new neural pathways simply by changing how you view the glowing screen in your pocket and the hours in your day. We will cover how to audit your attention, how to master the golden hour of your morning, and how to embrace the joy of missing out. But it all starts with a simple decision. The decision that your time belongs to you, not to the device in your hand. If you're ready to stop reacting to the noise and start designing your life, let's begin. Chapter 1. The Attention Economy. Why you feel so tired. Picture this scenario. It is 6 a.m. The alarm rings. Before your feet even touch the floor, your hand instinctively reaches out to the nightstand. You squint against the harsh blue light of your phone screen. You check an email from your boss, a news headline about a crisis halfway across the world, and 3 social media updates from people you haven't seen in a decade. By the time you actually stand up to brush your teeth, you have already processed more information than a human being in the 19th century processed in an entire week. You haven't even had your coffee, yet you feel a subtle, low-grade exhaustion humming in the background of your mind. You tell yourself you are just catching up, but in reality, you are making a withdrawal. You are overdrawn before the day has even begun. This is the reality of the attention economy. We often talk about time management, but that is a misnomer. Time keeps moving forward regardless of what we do. You cannot manage time. You can only manage your attention. And right now, your attention is the most valuable commodity in the global marketplace. Think of your attention like a bank account containing a limited amount of daily energy. Every notification, every ping, every quick glance at a scrolling feed is a transaction. You are paying with your focus. The problem is, most of us are handing out blank checks to anyone who asks. Consider the case of a graphic designer we will call Mark. Mark sits at his desk for 10 hours a day. He feels busy. He feels stressed. But if you look closely at his output, he is only producing about 3 hours of real value. Why? Because every 15 minutes he checks in on the news or his fantasy football league. He believes these are 30-second breaks, but biologically they are not breaks. They are cognitive shifts. Every time he switches his context, he burns glucose, literal brain fuel. By 2 p.m., Mark isn't tired because he worked hard. He is tired because his brain has run a marathon of context switching. This leads us to a hard truth. You cannot manage your time until you stop leaking your attention. We see this leaking everywhere. Imagine a parent at the park, pushing a child on a swing with one hand while scrolling through emails with the other. They are physically present, but mentally absent. They are failing to connect with their child, and they are failing to solve the work problem effectively. They are doing two things poorly and exhausting themselves in the process. This is the cost of living in the cloud while trying to survive by the clock. So, how do we stop the bleeding? We must adopt a new philosophy and a set of strict tactical rules. The first key principle is to treat your attention like hard cash. If a stranger walked up to you on the street and asked for $10, you would probably ask why. You wouldn't just hand it over. Yet when an app buzzes, we hand over our focus immediately without asking, is this worth my mental currency? You must become stingy with your attention. Do not spend it on things you did not choose to buy. The second principle is to identify your leaky buckets. We all have them. Usually, there are two specific apps or websites that are responsible for 80% of your wasted mental energy. For some, it is a news aggregator. For others, it is a photo-sharing app. Identify them today. Acknowledging them is the first step to closing the leak. The third insight is the wait 10 minutes rule. The urge to distract yourself, to check the phone or look up a random fact, is usually a wave of chemical discomfort called boredom or anxiety. It peaks and then subsides. When you feel the urge to click away from your work, tell yourself, I will check that in 10 minutes. Almost invariably, the urge will vanish before the 10 minutes are up, and you will have saved your focus. Take a moment to consider this as you are listening. Visualize a physical wallet in your pocket. It is filled with fresh $100 bills representing your daily energy. Now picture yourself walking down a busy street, handing a bill to every stranger who waves at you simply because they waved. Feel the weight of that loss. Now close that wallet, button your pocket, and walk forward with purpose. To synthesize this chapter, time is replaceable, but your attention is not. You must stop trading your limited mental life force for unlimited digital noise. We now understand the value of the currency we are protecting, but to truly protect it, we need to clear away the debris that is currently cluttering your life.
Chapter 2. Digital Minimalism. Cleaning the Slate.
Imagine walking into your living room after a long day of work. You open the door, expecting peace, but instead you find the floor covered in trash. Old newspapers, candy wrappers, and piles of laundry are scattered everywhere. There is a radio blaring in one corner and a television screaming in the other. In that environment, how easy would it be to sit down, relax, and read a book? It would be impossible. Your mind would be frantically scanning the chaos, looking for order. Now, look at your smartphone. For many of us, our digital environment looks exactly like that messy living room. Pages of unused apps, red notification badges screaming for attention, unread emails piling up like dirty laundry, and a constant stream of noise. We treat our digital space as if it doesn't matter, as if it were invisible. But the truth is, clutter in the cloud creates clutter in the mind. You cannot expect to have a focused, peaceful mind if you are operating inside a digital junkyard. This brings us to the concept of digital minimalism. This is not about throwing away technology or living in a cabin in the woods. It is about intentionally curating your digital tools so they serve you rather than enslaving you. It is about cleaning the slate. When your phone is cluttered, your brain perceives it as a set of unfinished tasks. Every time you unlock your screen and see a chaotic array of icons, your subconscious mind spikes in cortisol. It is a micro-stressor. And when you encounter hundreds of these micro-stressors a day, they accumulate into a heavy blanket of anxiety. Let's look at a real-world example. Consider Sarah, a high-performing sales manager. Sarah prided herself on being always on. Her phone buzzed every time a lead came in, every time a news site posted a headline, and every time a friend liked her photo. She was drowning in data.
She decided to run a 3-day experiment. She turned off every single notification on her phone except for text messages and phone calls, communication from actual human beings. The app notifications, the news alerts, the game reminders, all silenced. She reported that within 48 hours, her baseline anxiety dropped by half. She realized she wasn't actually stressed about her job. She was stressed by the constant, unpredictable interruption of her device. Or consider David, a college student struggling to write his thesis. He found himself doom-scrolling social media for 2 hours a day. He didn't want to delete his accounts, but he needed to stop the bleeding. His solution was simple friction. He removed the social media apps from his phone and only allowed himself to check them on his desktop computer. By moving the distraction from his pocket to a stationary desk, he added a layer of effort. That small barrier was enough to break the habit loop. His screen time dropped and his focus returned. So how do we clean your slate? We are going to apply 3 tactical laws of digital hygiene. The first principle is to eliminate the red dots. Those little red badges on your app icons are designed by behavioral psychologists to trigger a sense of urgency. They hack your brain's desire for completion. Go into your settings today and turn off badges for everything except essential communication tools. You do not need a red dot to tell you a podcast app has a new episode. You will check it when you decide to, not when the app demands it. The second insight is the concept of digital weeding. Just as a garden is overrun by weeds if left unattended, your inbox and feed are overrun by low-value noise. Make a commitment to unsubscribe to 5 email lists today. If you haven't opened their emails in a month, you don't need them. Unfollow accounts that make you feel inadequate or angry. Curate your input to protect your output. The third strategy is to bury the distraction. If you must keep distracting apps on your phone, do not leave them on the home screen. Move them to the last page inside a folder. Make yourself swipe 3 times and click twice to open them. By increasing the friction, you give your rational brain a split second to intervene and ask, do I really want to do this? As you listen to this, I want you to try a mental exercise. Imagine your phone screen is completely blank. No colorful icons, no red badges, just a calm, dark surface. Imagine turning it on and seeing only the time and a photo of something you love. Feel the physical sensation of relief in your shoulders in this imaginary silence. That sense of calm is available to you, but you have to build it. Here is the summary for this chapter. A clear environment leads to a clear mind. You must be the janitor of your own digital life, sweeping away the noise so you can hear your own thoughts. With the noise turned down and the slate cleaned, we can now look at how you actually do your work. We have cleared the space. Now we must master the mechanism of the clock.
Chapter 3. The Myth of Multitasking, the Power of One. If you walk into any corporate interview today and ask the candidate to list their strengths, almost invariably they will say with a smile, "I am a great multitasker." We wear this label like a badge of honor. We believe that juggling 3 projects, answering emails while on a conference call, and eating lunch while writing a report makes us productive. It makes us feel like efficiency machines. But I want to challenge you with a controversial truth. Multitasking is a myth. It does not exist. The human brain is not wired to process 2 cognitively demanding tasks simultaneously. It is biologically impossible. When you think you are multitasking, you are actually doing something called switch tasking. You are rapidly toggling your focus from one object to another. You switch from the phone to the email, then back to the phone. To you, it feels seamless. To your brain, it is a series of violent, energy-draining interruptions. Research suggests that every time you switch tasks, there is a resumption cost. It takes your brain an average of 20 minutes to regain the same level of depth and cognitive momentum you had before the interruption. Think about that. If you check your email every 10 minutes, you are literally never operating at your full mental potential. You are permanently stuck in the shallows, skimming the surface of your own intelligence.
Let's illustrate this with a scene from a professional kitchen. Imagine a head chef during the dinner rush. He is trying to chop vegetables with a razor-sharp knife while simultaneously shouting inventory orders into a headset. He believes he's saving time, but what happens? His attention splits. He slices the onion unevenly, or worse, he nicks his finger. He orders the wrong amount of steak. Now he has to stop, bandage his hand, and call the supplier back to fix the order. By trying to do two things at once, he has ruined both and doubled the time required to fix his mistakes. Contrast this with a software developer we will call James. James used to have 10 windows open on his monitors. He felt productive, but his code was buggy and he was always behind schedule. He decided to embrace the philosophy of monotasking. When he wrote code, he closed his email. When he answered email, he closed his code. He focused on one screen, one task, one objective. The result? He finished a week's worth of work in 3 days. By stopping the switching, he stopped the energy leaks. We need to stop worshiping the chaotic god of multitasking and start practicing the disciplined art of the power of one. How do we apply this? Here are 3 practical principles to reclaim your focus. The first principle is batching. Your brain loves patterns. It hates jumping between different types of thinking. Do not answer emails one by one as they arrive throughout the day. Instead, group similar tasks together. Process all your emails in one 30-minute block. Make all your phone calls in one back-to-back session. When you keep your brain in one gear, you move faster and with less friction. The second insight is to clear your visual field. If you are working on a browser, close every tab except the one you are currently using. If you are working on your desk, clear away the files that belong to other projects. Visual clutter pulls at your peripheral attention. By closing the tabs, you are putting blinders on a racehorse. You are forcing your energy down a single channel. The third strategy is verbal anchoring. This sounds simple, but it is incredibly effective for the distracted mind. When you find yourself drifting or feeling the urge to switch tasks, speak out loud to yourself. Say, "I am writing this proposal now," or "I am reading this report." By verbalizing your intention, you snap your brain back to the present moment. You interrupt the subconscious loop that wants to seek a new novelty. As you listen to this, I want you to tap into a memory. Think back to the last time you were fully absorbed in an activity. Maybe you were reading a gripping novel, painting, or playing a sport. You lost track of time. You weren't checking your phone. You weren't worrying about tomorrow. You were just there. Recall how efficient and effortless that felt. That state is called flow, and it is only possible when you do one thing at a time. Here's the synthesis for this chapter. Multitasking is merely the opportunity to screw up more than one thing at a time. To master the clock, you must slow down your switching to speed up your results. We now know we need to focus on one thing. But when is the best time to tackle our most important work? That answer lies in the first 60 minutes of your day.
Chapter 4: The Golden Hour, Morning Routines for Success. There's a specific moment that occurs every single morning, a moment that dictates the trajectory of your entire day. It happens the split second you open your eyes. In that fragile, hazy moment between sleep and wakefulness, you stand at a fork in the road. To the left is the path of reactivity. This is the path where you reach for your phone, scroll through the notifications that accumulated while you slept, and immediately flood your brain with the demands, emergencies, and agendas of other people. To the right is the path of proactivity. This is the path where you claim the first hour of the day for yourself, centering your mind and setting your intentions before the world has a chance to intrude. Most people choose the path to the left by default. They wake up and immediately surrender their mental real estate to the cloud. But this chapter is about choosing the path to the right. We call this the golden hour. If you win the morning, you win the day. It is a simple equation, yet it is profound in its application. When you check your phone first thing in the morning, you are effectively saying, "My time is not my own. It belongs to everyone else." You start your day on the defense, deflecting incoming missiles, rather than on the offense, advancing your own goals.
Let's look at the biology of this. When you wake up, your brain is transitioning from delta and theta waves, the state of deep rest and dreaming, into alpha waves, a state of relaxed alertness. This is a precious cognitive state. It is where you are most creative, most receptive, and most calm. When you blast that delicate state with a news headline about a recession or an angry email from a client, you jolt your system directly into beta waves, high alert and stress. You are skipping the warm-up and sprinting directly into traffic. Consider the transformation of Elena, a high-powered CEO. For years, her morning routine was a sprint. Her alarm was her phone. She would wake up, grab the device, and lie in bed for 20 minutes triaging emails. By the time she got out of bed, her heart rate was elevated and her mind was already racing with problems to solve. She arrived at work exhausted. Then she made a radical shift. She bought a standard alarm clock and left her phone in the kitchen overnight. Her new routine was simple. Wake up, drink coffee, and read 10 pages of a biography. No screens for 30 minutes. She reported that this single change didn't just make her happier, it made her a better leader. She arrived at the office with a reservoir of calm, ready to lead rather than react. But this isn't just for executives. Think of a stay-at-home father named Chris. His mornings used to begin when his 3 children woke him up by jumping on the bed. He woke up into chaos. He felt like a victim of his schedule. He decided to wake up just 20 minutes before his children. In those 20 minutes, he didn't do anything profound. He sat in a chair, drank a glass of water, and visualized how he wanted the day to go. He mentally rehearsed being patient. He mentally organized the errands. When the kids woke up, he was ready for them. He had already put on his own oxygen mask. The golden hour is not about doing more work. It is about establishing authority over your own existence. To implement this, we need to anchor ourselves with 3 practical disciplines. The first principle is the analog wake-up. You must physically separate yourself from the digital world while you sleep. Buy an old-fashioned alarm clock. Charge your phone in the hallway, the kitchen, or the bathroom, anywhere but the bedside table. This removes the physical temptation to scroll. It forces you to get out of bed to check the digital world, adding a layer of friction that protects your peace. The second insight is hydration before information. After 8 hours of sleep, your brain is dehydrated. Before you consume a single bite of data, consume 16 ounces of water. This is a biological reset button. It signals to your body that you are awake and fuels the cognitive engine. Make it a rule: no pixels until you have had your water. The third strategy is to identify your one big thing. Before you look at your to-do list, which is likely a mile long, ask yourself one question. What is the one thing I must accomplish today to feel satisfied? Identify it while your mind is clear. Write it down on a piece of paper. This becomes your North Star. If the rest of the day falls apart, if emergencies happen, if the cloud descends, you still know exactly where you're heading. Take a moment right now to visualize your bedroom. Look at your nightstand. Is your phone there, tethered to the wall like a leash? Picture yourself tonight unplugging it, walking it out of the room and plugging it somewhere else. Visualize the freedom of that empty nightstand. It is a small space, but reclaiming it is a massive victory. Here's the synthesis for this chapter. You cannot control what happens to you during the day, but you can control how you enter the day. Guard your morning as if it were gold, because in the economy of productivity, it is. You've started the day strong. You're hydrated, centered, and you have your target. But eventually, the real work begins. To make significant progress, we have to go deeper than just checking off boxes. We need to build a fortress of focus.
Chapter 5. Deep Work. Building Your Fortress of Focus. Most of the work we do every day is shallow. We answer emails, attend routine meetings, manage administrative tasks, and put out fires. This shallow work is necessary. It keeps the machine running. It prevents you from getting fired. But shallow work rarely leads to breakthroughs, promotions, or a deep sense of fulfillment. Deep work, on the other hand, is the ability to focus without distraction on a cognitively demanding task. It is the skill that allows you to quickly master complicated information and produce high-value results. Deep work is where the magic happens. It is where you create, innovate, and move the needle. The problem is that in the age of the cloud, deep work is becoming increasingly rare.
Our attention is constantly being fragmented by notifications, social media, and the expectation of constant availability. We are training our brains to be shallow, reactive, and distractible. But here is a hard truth. Shallow work keeps you employed. Deep work gets you promoted. If you want to thrive in the new economy, you must cultivate the ability to focus deeply. Think of J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter series. Rowling didn't write those novels in a busy coffee shop while checking Twitter. She famously locked herself in hotel rooms for hours, even days at a time, severing all contact with the outside world until she had written a chapter. She built a fortress of focus. Or consider Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft. For decades, Gates has practiced what he calls think weeks. Twice a year, he retreats to a secluded cabin, bringing with him a stack of books and research papers. He isolates himself completely, allowing no phone calls, no emails, and no interruptions. He uses this time to think deeply about the future of technology and the direction of his company. These think weeks have generated some of Microsoft's most innovative ideas. Deep work isn't just for novelists and billionaires. It is a skill that can be cultivated by anyone, regardless of their profession. The key is to create a dedicated space and time for focused concentration. So, how do we build your fortress of focus? We will construct it with 3 practical principles. The first principle is scheduled isolation. You cannot simply hope to find time for deep work. You must proactively schedule it into your calendar. Treat these appointments as if they were meetings with the president. Block out specific times for focused work and defend them fiercely. Let people know that you are unavailable during these times. Put a sign on your door, turn off your notifications, and create a physical barrier between yourself and the outside world. The second insight is signaling rituals. Just as athletes have pre-game rituals to get them into the zone, you need a ritual to signal to your brain that it is time to focus. This could be as simple as putting on headphones, closing the door, or brewing a cup of tea. The ritual doesn't matter as much as the consistency. Over time, your brain will associate these actions with deep concentration. The third strategy is start small. If you are not used to focusing deeply, don't try to work for 4 hours straight. Start with just 45 minutes of unbroken concentration. Use a timer and take a short break when the timer goes off. Gradually increase the length of your deep work sessions as your focus improves. Right now, as you're listening, think of a project you have been putting off. It might be writing a report, creating a presentation, or strategizing a new business plan. It is something you know is important, but you keep procrastinating. Now, imagine completing a large chunk of that project in a state of quiet isolation. Visualize the satisfaction of making real progress. Here is the synthesis for this chapter. Shallow work is a survival tactic. Deep work is a superpower. To master the clock, you must carve out space to think, create, and innovate without interruption. We now know how to create these islands of focus. But what about the constant stream of requests, meetings, and obligations that flood our days? To protect our time, we must learn the art of graceful refusal.
Chapter 6. The Art of Saying No. Protecting Your Time. We have spoken about the value of your attention, the importance of your morning, and the power of deep work. But there is a silent enemy that can dismantle all of these systems in a single second. That enemy is a tiny 3-letter word: yes. We live in a culture that celebrates the yes. We are taught that saying yes makes us team players, supportive friends, and engaged parents. We fear that saying no makes us look selfish or incompetent. But here is the brutal reality of time management. Every time you say yes to something minor, you are simultaneously saying no to something major. You cannot create more time. You can only allocate it. When you agree to a 1-hour meeting that has no clear agenda, you are deleting 1 hour of deep work from your schedule.
When you agree to bake 3 dozen cupcakes for a school event you don't care about, you are deleting a Saturday morning with your children. A yes to the trivial is a no to the essential. The art of saying no is not about being negative, it is about being protective. It is the shield that guards the fortress of focus we just built. Consider the story of Michael, a rising star in a software company. Michael was a classic people pleaser. If a colleague asked for help with a report, he said yes. If the boss asked for a volunteer for the party planning committee, he said yes. He was liked by everyone, but he was drowning. His own sales targets were slipping because he was spending 20 hours a week doing other people's work. One day, his mentor pulled him aside and said, "Michael, you are popular, but you are not effective." Michael took this to heart. The next week, when asked to join a new task force, he didn't apologize. He simply said, "I would love to help, but I need to focus entirely on closing the Q3 accounts right now." He expected anger. Instead, he got respect. His boss realized Michael was serious about his primary job. By the end of the quarter, Michael hit his targets, earned a bonus, and, ironically, had more respect from his peers than when he was a doormat. On a more personal level, think of Linda, a working mother who felt the pressure to be supermom. She agreed to every volunteer request from the PTA. She was exhausted and resentful. Finally, she drew a line. When the call came for the annual bake sale, she said, "I can't bake this time, but I can donate $20 for supplies." She bought back her Saturday morning. She spent it hiking with her kids, creating a memory that lasted far longer than a cupcake. So, how do we develop this muscle? How do we decline without destroying relationships? Here are 3 principles to master the graceful no. The first principle is the bandwidth reframe. Stop saying, "I don't have time." It sounds like an excuse, and people will often try to find time for you. Instead, say, "I don't have the bandwidth for that right now." Bandwidth implies energy and focus, not just hours. It signals that your plate is full of high-priority items. It is a professional boundary that is hard to argue with. The second insight is the automatic pause. Never say yes immediately. When someone asks for your time, your default reaction should be to buy yourself space. Develop a reflex phrase like, "That sounds interesting. Let me check my schedule and get back to you by the end of the day." This pause creates a cooling-off period. It removes the social pressure of the moment and allows you to make a rational decision based on your priorities, not your emotions. The third strategy is to realize the respect paradox. We fear that saying no will make people dislike us. In reality, people respect those who have clear boundaries. If you say yes to everything, your time is perceived as cheap. If you say no to the non-essentials, your time is perceived as valuable. When you finally do say yes, people take it seriously. You teach people how to treat you by what you accept. Take a moment to reflect on a recent commitment you regretted. Maybe it was a social gathering you didn't want to attend, or a project you knew was a dead end. Replay that moment when they asked you. Feel the pressure. Now, reimagine the scene. See yourself smiling politely and saying, "I appreciate you asking, but I don't have the bandwidth for that right now." Feel the relief of walking away with your time intact. Here is the synthesis for this chapter. You are the guardian of your own life. If you do not defend your time, no one else will. A polite refusal is better than a resentful agreement. Now that we have established our boundaries, we are left with the tasks that truly matter. But how do we organize them so they actually get done? We need a budget, not for our money, but for our day.
Chapter 7. Time Blocking. The Budget for Your Day. Most people start their day with a to-do list. It sits there on the desk, a long, intimidating column of scribbled tasks staring back at you. You look at item number 1, write quarterly report. You look at item number 10, buy milk. The list treats them as if they are equal, just lines on a page. But the problem with a to-do list is that it is infinite. You can always add one more bullet point.
The day, however, is finite. It has a hard stop. When you try to manage a finite day with an infinite list, the result is inevitable frustration. You reach the end of the day with half the items unchecked, and you go to bed feeling like a failure. You didn't fail, your system failed. A list is nothing more than a menu of possibilities. A calendar is a commitment to reality. This brings us to the discipline of time blocking. If you want to master the clock, you must stop working off a list and start working off a calendar. You must budget your time exactly the same way a CFO budgets money. Every dollar needs a job, and every hour needs a specific assignment. There's a law in productivity known as Parkinson's Law, which states, work expands to fill the time available for its completion. If you give yourself all day to write a proposal, it will take you all day. You will procrastinate, you will over-edit, and you will get distracted. But if you give yourself a hard block from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., your brain switches into a higher gear. The constraint creates focus. Let's look at a real estate agent we will call Marcus. For years, Marcus ran his business in reactive mode. His phone rang, he answered. A client texted, he replied. He felt productive, but he was always behind on his paperwork and lead generation. He decided to implement time blocking. Instead of answering the phone all day, he created 2 specific 30-minute blocks, one at 11:30 a.m. and one at 4 p.m. His voicemail changed to say, "I return all calls twice daily." By grouping these interruptions, he freed up the rest of his day for showing houses and closing deals. He didn't lose clients, he gained respect for his professionalism, and his income rose by 40%. Time blocking works for mental clutter as well. Consider a university student plagued by anxiety about her grades. Her worry was bleeding into her study time, making her ineffective. She tried a radical experiment. She time-blocked worry time. She scheduled 4:30 p.m. to 5 p.m. as the time to sit down and write out everything she was afraid of. If a worry popped up at 10 a.m., she told herself, "Not now. I have an appointment to worry about that at 4:30. It sounds strange, but it worked. It contained the anxiety within a boundary, leaving the rest of the day clear for learning. So how do we turn your calendar into a fortress of productivity? We apply 3 tactical rules. The first key principle is, if it doesn't have a time, it's just a wish. Take your to-do list and transfer every single item to a specific slot on your calendar. If Project X is important, don't just put it on a list, give it the slot from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. on Tuesday. If you can't find a slot for it, you have to admit you won't do it. This forces you to confront the reality of how much time you actually have. The second insight is the buffer zone. We are terrible at estimating time. We think a task will take an hour. It usually takes an hour and 15 minutes. When you block your day, always add a 20% buffer to every task. If you think it takes 60 minutes, schedule 75. This creates breathing room. It prevents one late meeting from knocking down the rest of your day like a row of dominoes. The third strategy is to schedule reactive blocks. A common objection to time blocking is, "But my job is unpredictable. Emergencies happen." Ideally, you should schedule that unpredictability. Block out 1 hour in the afternoon specifically labeled chaos control or returning emails. This is the bucket for all the unexpected things that land on your desk. You aren't ignoring the unexpected, you are giving it a specific time and place. Take a moment to visualize your calendar for tomorrow. Imagine it as a series of empty boxes. Now mentally pick up your most important, terrifying task, the one you've been avoiding, and place it firmly in the first box of the morning. Lock it in. Feel the certainty that comes from knowing exactly when it will get done. Here is the synthesis for this chapter. A task without a time block is a hallucination. Work expands to fill the void, so close the void. Budget your day before the world spends it for you. We are now halfway through our journey of reclaiming your time. If these strategies are helping you see the clock and the cloud differently, I would be grateful if you would subscribe or follow this audiobook. It helps us bring these practical lessons to more people looking for peace in the chaos. Now we have the schedule set. The calendar is perfect. But a car with a perfect map still won't move if it has no gas. we need to talk about the fuel that drives the engine.
Chapter 8. Energy Management. It's not just about time. We have spent the last few chapters obsessing over the grid of your calendar. We have built a perfect structure. But there is a flaw in traditional time management that we must address. You can have the most beautifully color-coded schedule in the world, but if you are exhausted, foggy, or burned out when the time comes to do the work, that schedule is worthless. A car with a perfect map will not reach its destination if the gas tank is empty. In this analogy, the calendar is the map, but energy is the fuel. We tend to view time as a flat, consistent commodity. We assume that 1 hour at 9 a.m. is exactly the same as 1 hour at 3 p.m. But biologically, this is false. Your cognitive ability fluctuates wildly throughout the day based on your circadian rhythm, your glucose levels, and your sleep drive. An hour of work when you are fresh and alert might produce the same output as 4 hours of work when you are sluggish. Therefore, the goal is not just to manage your time, it is to manage your energy. You do not need more hours in the day, you need better hours. Consider the case of a software developer named Jasmine. Jasmine was a classic night owl. However, she tried to force herself into the corporate mold of the early bird. She dragged herself out of bed at 5 a.m. because she read that successful people wake up early. She spent her mornings staring blankly at her screen, drinking coffee, and fighting the fog. By the time she was fully awake at 11 a.m., half the day was gone. She was fighting her own biology. Jasmine decided to stop fighting. She negotiated a flexible schedule. She shifted her deep work, her coding, to her biological peak, which was from 8 p.m. to midnight. She slept later in the mornings. The result was transformative. She produced cleaner code in 4 hours at night than she used to produce in 8 hours during the day. She learned that swimming with the current is faster than swimming upstream. Or look at a corporate team led by a manager named Tom. Tom used to schedule his most important strategy meetings at 2 p.m. right after lunch. He wondered why his team seemed uninspired, quiet, and low energy. He didn't realize he was asking for peak performance during the afternoon slump when the body is naturally diverting energy to digestion. Tom made a simple switch. He moved all creative meetings to 10 a.m. and used the 2 p.m. slot for low-energy administrative tasks. The team didn't change, but their output skyrocketed simply because he aligned the task with the available energy. So, how do we map your tasks to your biology? We need to implement 3 energy protocols. The first principle is to identify your prime time. Are you a lark who peaks in the morning or an owl who peaks in the evening? For the next 3 days, simply notice when you feel the most clarity. Protect that window. That is your magic time. Do not sell that time cheaply. The second insight is task matching. Never use your prime time for low-value tasks. If you are sharpest at 8 a.m., do not spend that hour answering emails or booking flights. That is a waste of premium fuel on a cheap journey. Use your best energy for your hardest problems and save the mindless tasks for when your brain is tired. The third strategy is the hourly reset. The human brain can only sustain high focus for about 90 minutes before it needs a reboot. Set a timer. Every hour, stand up. Move your body for 5 minutes. Walk down the hall, stretch, or do 10 jumping jacks. This isn't just about fitness, it's about pumping oxygen to the brain to reset your energy levels for the next sprint. Check in with yourself right now as you are listening. Scan your body. On a scale of 1 to 10, what is your energy level at this exact moment? When during the day is it usually a 10? Visualize yourself moving your most critical work to that precise time slot. Here is the synthesis for this chapter. Time is fixed, but energy is flexible. Stop trying to manage the clock and start managing the fuel. We are now managing our energy and our schedule, but no matter how well we plan, there will always be gaps. Waiting in line, sitting in traffic, walking between meetings. These gaps look like dead time, but they're actually hidden gold mines. Chapter 9. Net Time. Utilizing the Gaps. If you analyze the average day, you will find it is not a solid block of activity. It is more like a piece of Swiss cheese. It is full of holes. We spend time commuting to work, waiting in line at the grocery store, sitting in the doctor's waiting room, folding laundry, or walking the dog. For most people, these gaps are dead time. They are the frustrating pauses between the things that actually matter. We usually fill these gaps by staring into space or reflexively checking social media for the 10th time. But if you add up these small increments, 20 minutes here, 10 minutes there, they often amount to 2 or 3 hours a day. Over the course of a year, that is the equivalent of an entire month of 40-hour work weeks. This brings us to a powerful concept known as net time. Net stands for no extra time. It is the art of capturing these lost moments and transforming them into periods of growth, learning, or health without adding a single minute to your schedule. You are doing these activities anyway. The goal is to layer value on top of them. The difference between a person who stagnates and a person who grows is often not found in what they do at the office, but in what they do in the gaps. Consider the story of a commuter we will call Robert. Robert spent 45 minutes driving to work and 45 minutes driving home. For years, he listened to talk radio, arriving at work angry about politics and arriving home exhausted by traffic. Then, he decided to turn his car into a university on wheels. He started listening to audio courses on Spanish. He didn't study at a desk. He simply listened while he drove. In 3 years, Robert became fluent in a second language. He added a massive skill to his resume, and it cost him 0 extra time. He simply reclaimed the waste. Or consider Maria, a busy mother of 2. She felt she had no time to read, but she realized she spent about 15 minutes every afternoon sitting in her car in the school pickup line. Instead of scrolling through her phone, she started keeping a paperback book in her purse. Those 15 minutes a day allowed her to read 12 books a year. While other parents were getting agitated by the wait, she was actually looking forward to it. She turned a friction point into a learning point. So how do we master net time? We need to prepare our environment so we can seize these moments instantly. The first principle is always be cued. You cannot waste time looking for something to listen to when you get in the car. That friction will stop you. Have your audiobooks, podcasts, or educational lectures downloaded and ready to play before you leave the house. When the ignition turns on, the learning should turn on automatically. The second insight is the walk and talk. If you have a job that requires phone calls, or if you need to catch up with a friend, do not do it sitting in a chair. Stand up and walk. If you're in an office, pace the room. If you're at home, walk around the block. You are combining communication with exercise. You are getting your steps in, oxygenating your brain, and doing your work simultaneously. This is the ultimate biological multitask. The third strategy is micro-meditation. Not every gap needs to be filled with information. Sometimes the best use of net time is restoration. If you are standing in a long line at the post office, instead of getting frustrated, use that time to practice deep breathing. Treat the wait as a surprise break gifted to you by the universe. While everyone else is checking their watches, you are lowering your cortisol. Take a moment to identify a chore you do every single day. Maybe it is washing the dishes, driving, or walking from the parking lot to your office. Visualize yourself doing that task tomorrow. Now, imagine yourself putting on headphones and learning a new skill while your hands are busy. Feel how efficient that feels. Here's the synthesis for this chapter. You have more time than you think. The gaps in your day are not empty, they are open vessels. Fill them with value. We have now tightened our ship. We are efficient, we are focused, and we are utilizing every moment. But are we going in the right direction? Speed is irrelevant if you're driving south when you should be driving north. To check our compass, we need a weekly ritual.
Chapter 10. The Weekly Review. The Pilot's Checklist. Imagine an airplane taking off from Los Angeles, bound for New York. If the pilot's navigation is off by just 1 single degree and they never correct it, the plane will not end up in New York. It will end up in the Atlantic Ocean. In a long journey, a tiny error in trajectory, if left uncorrected, leads to a massive error in destination. Our lives are very similar. In the whirlwind of the daily grind, the emails, the meetings, the unexpected fires, it is incredibly easy to drift off course. We get so busy rowing the boat that we forget to look up and see if we are still heading toward the island. You might be incredibly efficient, checking off boxes and attending meetings, but if you are moving in the wrong direction, that speed is dangerous. This is why you need a compass check. We call this the weekly review. The weekly review is a non-negotiable ritual where you step out of the role of the worker and step into the role of the boss. You stop doing the work and start looking at the work. It is the bridge between your high-level goals and your daily actions. Without it, you are just reacting to the loudest noise. With it, you are executing a plan. Consider the experience of a project manager we will call Sarah. Sarah used to suffer from a condition known as the Sunday scaries. Every Sunday afternoon, a knot of anxiety would form in her stomach. She worried about what she had forgotten, what was waiting for her on Monday morning, and whether she was prepared. She was living in a state of low-grade panic. Then she instituted a Sunday ritual. Every Sunday evening at 7 p.m., she sat down for just 20 minutes. She didn't do work, she organized it. She reviewed her calendar for the upcoming week, identified her 3 main objectives, and laid out her clothes for Monday. That 20-minute investment dissolved the anxiety. She started sleeping better. She woke up on Monday morning with a plan of attack rather than waking up to defend herself against chaos. Or take Jason, a freelance graphic designer. His problem wasn't anxiety, it was loose ends. He would forget to send invoices, forget to follow up on leads, and let emails slip through the cracks. He decided to do his review on Friday afternoons, the last thing before he closed his laptop. He called it closing the loop. He scanned his sent folder, checked his billing, and wrote down his starting tasks for Monday. By doing this on Friday, he was able to mentally disconnect for the weekend. He enjoyed his time off because his brain knew the loops were closed. To install this pilot's checklist into your life, we need to follow 3 practical steps. The first principle is ritual consistency. You cannot do this whenever you have time, because you will never have time. You must schedule it. Pick a time that works for your psychology. Friday afternoon works well if you want to clear your head for the weekend. Sunday evening works well if you want to prime yourself for the battle of the week. Lock it in. The second insight is clear to neutral. In the culinary world, chefs practice mise en place, putting everything in its place. Before they leave the kitchen, they scrub the counters and sharpen the knives so they are ready for the next service. Your weekly review is your mise en place. Clear your physical desktop, archive the files you are done with, get your email inbox to a manageable state. When you start your week on Monday, you want to sit down at a clean slate, not a crime scene of last week's mess. The third strategy is the look ahead. Look at the landscape of the coming week. Where are the landmines? Do you have a day with 6 hours of meetings? If so, you know not to schedule deep work that day. Do you have a major deadline on Thursday? If so, block out Tuesday and Wednesday to prepare. Anticipate the obstacles before you hit them. This allows you to adjust your course while you are still calm, rather than panicking when the collision happens. As you listen to this, visualize next Sunday evening. Imagine sitting in your favorite chair. The house is quiet. You have looked at your week, you know exactly what you need to do on Monday, and your mind is clear. You feel prepared. You feel calm. You feel like the pilot of your own life. Here is the synthesis for this chapter. You cannot hit a target you cannot see. Stop rowing for a moment, stand up, check your compass, and then proceed with confidence. We have the system, we have the focus, we have the plan, but there is still a psychological barrier we have to break. It is the fear that by choosing this focused life, we are missing out on everything else. Chapter 11. JOMO, the Joy of Missing Out. We live in a world that monetizes your anxiety. Everywhere you turn, there is a subtle, nagging message that says something amazing is happening right now and you are not part of it. We call this FOMO, the fear of missing out. It drives us to check our phones at dinner. It drives us to scroll through photos of strangers' vacations while we are sitting on our own comfortable couches. It drives us to consume news about crises we cannot solve simply because we are terrified of being out of the loop. This fear is a prison. It keeps us in a state of constant low-level dissatisfaction with our own reality. But what if we flipped the script? What if instead of fearing what we are missing out on, we celebrated it? Welcome to JOMO, the joy of missing out. JOMO is the emotionally intelligent cousin of FOMO. It is the realization that you cannot be everywhere. You cannot know everything. You cannot be everyone. And instead of fighting that reality, you embrace it. It is the understanding that by missing out on the noise of the world, you are tuning in to the music of your own life. You can have it all, but you cannot have it all at once. Let's look at a social experiment that is gaining popularity in restaurants. A group of friends sits down for dinner. Instead of placing their phones next to their forks, they stack them face down in the center of the table. The rules are simple. The first person to touch their phone has to pay the bill for the entire table. At first, there is a twitch of anxiety. The phone buzzes in the stack, and eyes dart toward it. But after 10 minutes, something magical happens. The anxiety breaks. The group realizes the world didn't end. They start to look at each other. The conversation deepens. They laugh louder. By missing out on the digital stream, they gained a genuine human connection. They traded 1,000 superficial likes for one meaningful evening. Consider the case of a high-level marketing executive named Rebecca. Her job required her to be plugged into trends. She was terrified that if she didn't watch the news every morning and check Twitter every hour, she would become irrelevant. But she was burnt out. As a desperate measure, she went on a 30-day news fast. She blocked all news sites and deleted social media. She expected to feel isolated. Instead, she felt liberated. She reported that her creativity returned because her brain wasn't clogged with the world's tragedies. When she returned to work, she found she hadn't missed anything vital. The important news reached her through conversation. She realized that being informed about everything is not a virtue. It is often just a form of entertainment that causes stress. To cultivate this joy, we need to practice voluntary disconnection. Here are 3 ways to embrace JOMO. The first principle is the naked errand. We have become like cyborgs. We feel naked without our devices. Practice leaving your phone at home for short, low-risk trips. Go to the grocery store without it. Walk the dog without it. At first, you will feel a phantom limb syndrome. You will reach for a pocket that is empty. But then you will notice the sky. You will notice the cashier's face. You will realize that you are untethered. The second insight is the weekend delete. If you don't have the willpower to stay off social media on the weekends, remove the temptation. Delete the apps on Friday evening. Reinstall them on Monday morning if you must. This creates a digital Sabbath. It forces you to find dopamine in the real world, in a book, a hobby, or a conversation, rather than in a scroll. The third strategy is the avoidance audit. Often, we check our phones not because we want to see what others are doing, but because we want to avoid what we are doing. When you feel the itch to check, ask yourself, what am I avoiding right now? Usually, it's a difficult task, a moment of boredom, or an uncomfortable emotion. By catching yourself, you can choose to face the moment rather than escape it. As you listen to this, try a visualization. Imagine a rushing river flowing past you. That river is the stream of information, every tweet, every photo, every news alert. Most people are in the water, struggling to stay afloat, gasping for air. But you are standing on the bank. You are dry. You are warm. You are watching the river flow, but you aren't drowning in it. You are safe. Here is the synthesis for this chapter. A yes to your own life requires a no to the world's noise. Missing out is not a loss. It is a trade-off where you gain your sanity. Now that we've detached from the noise, we are faced with a new challenge. We've stopped the input, but how do we truly recharge the battery? We need to learn the lost art of rest.
Chapter 12. True Rest,
The off switch for the brain. We have a fundamental misunderstanding about what it means to rest. If you ask the average person how they relax after a stressful day, they will likely say, "I watch a show," or "I scroll through my feed," or "I play a video game." We equate sitting still with resting, but physically sitting still does not mean your brain is resting. When you stare at a screen, your brain is processing thousands of pixels per second. It is interpreting light, decoding text, and reacting to emotional triggers. You might be lying on the couch, but neurologically you are running a marathon. This is not rest, this is numbing. There is a critical distinction we must make between numbing out and restoring. Numbing is an attempt to escape reality by flooding the senses with easy dopamine. It feels good in the moment, like eating sugar, but it leaves you feeling lethargic and hollow. Restoration, or true rest, is an active process that replenishes your energy stores. Consider the case of Sandra, a corporate executive. Sandra struggled with chronic insomnia. She claimed she had a relaxing evening routine. She would lie in bed and watch 3 episodes of a crime drama to turn her brain off. But her sleep tracker showed she was getting almost no deep sleep. Why? Because the blue light was suppressing her melatonin, and the suspense of the show was keeping her cortisol levels simmering. She decided to try an experiment. She replaced the screen with a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. It sounds like work, right? It requires focus. But it was a different kind of focus. It was tactile, slow, and analog. By shifting from passive consumption to active engagement with a physical object, her brain waves slowed down. Within a week, her sleep quality improved dramatically. She wasn't numbing her brain, she was shifting it into a different gear. Or look at the practice adopted by Mark and Julia, a couple who felt they were roommates living in the same house, always on their separate devices. They implemented a tech Sabbath. From sundown on Friday to sundown on Saturday, all screens were powered down and put in a drawer, no exceptions. They were forced to cook together, go for walks, and actually talk. They found that 24 hours of analog living felt like a week of vacation. They returned to the digital world on Saturday night feeling truly hungry for connection rather than force-fed by algorithms. So how do we find the off switch for a brain that is wired to be always on? We need to practice the art of active recovery through 3 specific methods. The first principle is analog engagement. True rest often involves using your hands, cooking a meal from scratch, gardening, painting, or reading a paper book requires a singular focus that calms the mind. When you engage with the physical world, you ground yourself. You step out of the cloud and back into reality. Find a hobby that does not require a battery. The second insight is biological synchronization. Your sleep cycle, your ultimate form of rest, is regulated by light. Most of us get too much light at night and not enough in the morning. Make it a habit to get sunlight in your eyes within 20 minutes of waking up. This sets a timer in your brain that says, it is morning now, so 14 hours from now we will sleep. You cannot rest well at night if you do not anchor yourself to the sun during the day. The third strategy is the shutdown ritual. Your brain needs a signal that the workday is over. If you work until 8 p.m. and then immediately try to sleep, your engine is still hot. Create a clear boundary. It might be changing your clothes, writing a to-do list for tomorrow to clear your head, or taking a hot shower. This ritual says to your nervous system, the hunt is over. It is time to recover. Take a moment to reflect on your own habits. Think of an activity that leaves you feeling energized and refreshed afterwards, not just distracted. Maybe it's walking in the woods or playing an instrument. Now compare that to how you feel after 2 hours of social media. The difference is palpable. Plan to do the energizing activity this week. Here's the synthesis for this chapter. Recovery is not the absence of activity, it's a specific type of activity. You can't fix a tired mind by feeding it more information. We have learned how to work, how to focus, and now how to rest. But one day of good habits will not change your life. We need to talk about consistency. We need to talk about the compound effect.
Chapter 13. The Compound Effect of Habits. We have covered a lot of ground in this audiobook. We've discussed attention audits, morning routines, deep work, and digital detoxing. At this point, you might be feeling a mix of excitement and overwhelm. You might be thinking, this is all great, but how do I possibly change my entire life overnight? Here's the secret. You don't. And if you try to change everything overnight, you will almost certainly fail. Human beings are terrible at understanding non-linear growth. We're wired to look for immediate results. We go to the gym once and look in the mirror for abs. We declutter our desk once and expect to be organized forever. But success in time management and in life is not a race. It is a drift. It is the accumulation of tiny, almost invisible actions repeated daily over a long period. This is the compound effect. Just as money compounds in a bank account, your habits compound in your life. The difference between a chaotic life and a peaceful life is rarely one massive decision. It is the result of what you did with the quiet 15 minutes every morning for the last 5 years. Consider the story of an investor we will call Alan. Alan was not a genius, and he didn't have a high-paying job, but he had a habit. Every single morning, he spent just 15 minutes reading about the stock market while he drank his coffee. He didn't trade, he just learned. He did this for 10 years. That is over 90 hours of education, the equivalent of a college degree. By the time he was 40, he spotted a market trend that others missed, invested his savings, and retired a decade earlier than his peers. He didn't get lucky. He compounded his knowledge while everyone else was compounding their distraction. Or look at a writer named Sarah. She wanted to write a novel, but she worked full-time and had 2 kids. She didn't have hours to write, so she made a pact with herself. She would write just 200 words a day. That's about 2 paragraphs. It takes 10 minutes. Most days, she felt like she wasn't doing enough. It felt insignificant, but she never stopped. At the end of 1 year, she had a 70,000-word manuscript. She finished her book not by sprinting, but by refusing to stop walking. The clock masters you when you try to sprint against it. You master the clock when you use it to build momentum. So how do we harness this compound effect without burning out? We rely on 3 laws of consistency. The first principle is don't break the chain. This is a strategy famously attributed to the comedian Jerry Seinfeld. When you want to build a habit like planning your day or clearing your inbox, get a big wall calendar. Every day you do the habit, put a big red X on that day. After a few days, you have a chain. Your only job is not to break the chain. Focus on consistency, not intensity. It doesn't matter how well you did the habit, it only matters that you showed up. The second insight is the never miss twice rule. Life happens. You will get sick. You will have a crisis. You will miss a day. That is not failure. That is being human. But the danger lies in spiraling. If you miss 1 day of your morning routine, that is an anomaly. If you miss 2 days, that is the start of a new bad habit. Make a vow. When you fall off the wagon, you get back on immediately. You never miss twice. The third strategy is to celebrate small wins. Our brains are designed to seek dopamine. Usually, we get it from our phones. You need to rewire that system. When you finish your deep work block, acknowledge it. Pat yourself on the back. Literally, tick a box. Give yourself a small reward. You need to teach your brain that discipline feels good. When the habit becomes the source of dopamine, the struggle disappears. Take a moment to look into the future. Imagine yourself 5 years from today. Imagine you have stuck to these small habits, the morning water, the daily plan, the reading. See that version of you. They are calmer, wealthier in time, and more accomplished. That version of you is waiting for you to start today. Here is the synthesis for this chapter.
Greatness is a lot of small things done well, stacked on top of each other. Do not underestimate the power of a small action repeated 1,000 times. We are nearing the end of our journey. We have the tools, the energy, and the habits. Now we must bring it all together into a final philosophy. Why are we doing all of this? What is the point of saving time if we don't know what we're saving it for?
Chapter 14. Living Deliberately. Your Legacy of Time. We have arrived at the final chapter of our tactical journey. We have dissected the mechanics of the clock and the chaos of the cloud. We have optimized your morning, streamlined your workflow, and guarded your attention. But if we stop here, we have failed. You can be the most efficient person in the graveyard. You can have a perfectly cleared inbox and a zero-balance to-do list and still miss the point of being alive. The philosopher Annie Dillard wrote, "How we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our lives." It is a hauntingly simple equation. We often live with the delusion that our real life is starting later, after the promotion, after the mortgage is paid, after the kids are grown. We treat our current days as a waiting room. But the clock does not wait. The ticking you hear is not just the passing of seconds, it is the passing of your life. This chapter is about living deliberately. It is about ensuring that the ladder you are climbing so efficiently is actually leaning against the right wall. Consider the story of a successful business owner named Arthur. Arthur spent 40 years building a manufacturing empire. He was a master of efficiency. He was at the office at 6 a.m. and left at 7 p.m. He provided everything his family could ever want financially, but he was a ghost in his own home. At age 65, he looked at his calendar and realized it was full of meetings with people he didn't like, discussing problems that didn't matter. He realized he had become a servant to the machine he built. Arthur made a radical decision. He didn't retire, he restructured. He promoted his managers and cut his own schedule to 3 days a week. He spent the other 4 days with his grandchildren and teaching mentorship classes. He later said, "I spent 40 years managing time to make money, and I am spending the rest of my time spending money to buy back memories." He realized that his legacy was not the factory, it was the relationships he had neglected. Or consider a younger example, Maya, a software engineer caught in the grip of hustle culture. She was told that if she wasn't working 80 hours a week, she wasn't ambitious. She was exhausted, lonely, and anxious. One day, she asked herself a dangerous question. If I win this rat race, what is the prize? She realized the prize was just more work. She redefined success. She took a pay cut to work for a nonprofit with a 4-day work week. She traded status for time. She realized that freedom was a better currency than prestige. So how do we ensure we are living a legacy, not just a schedule? We need to apply 3 final philosophical filters to our time. The first principle is the values audit. Open your calendar right now. Look at where your hours are going. Now list your top 3 values. Most people say family, health, and growth. Now look back at the calendar. Do those words appear there? If you say family is your top priority, but they only get the leftover crumbs of your energy at 8 p.m., your calendar is lying. You must schedule your values first and fit your work around them, not the other way around. The second insight is the power of nothing. In our obsession with productivity, we have demonized idleness. We feel guilty if we aren't doing something. But you need unstructured time. You need time to sit on a porch, to walk without a destination, to just be. This white space is where you remember who you are. Schedule 2 hours a week for absolutely nothing. It will feel uncomfortable at first, and then it will feel like oxygen. The third strategy is the memento mori question. It is an ancient Latin phrase meaning, remember you must die. It is not morbid, it is clarifying. Steve Jobs famously looked in the mirror every morning and asked, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do? If the answer was no for too many days in a row, he knew he needed to change something.
You don't need to quit your job tomorrow, but you need to ask the question. It cuts through the triviality. It forces you to focus on what actually matters. Take a moment to close your eyes. Visualize your own tombstone. It is a stark image, I know, but imagine what is written there. Does it say, "He answered every email within 5 minutes"? Does it say, "She was very busy"? No, you want it to speak of connection, of love, of impact, and of presence. Does your schedule today lead to that inscription tomorrow? Here is the synthesis for this chapter and for this book. The clock keeps ticking whether you watch it or not. Do not just count the hours, make the hours count. The journey is complete. You have the blueprint, but a blueprint is not a building. We have one final section to lock this in and send you out into the world.
We have traveled a long way together. We started this journey in the noise and exhaustion of the attention economy, feeling the weight of a world that demands everything and gives nothing back. We walked through the clutter of the digital landscape, cleared the slate, and built a fortress of deep work. We learned to respect our biology, utilize the hidden gaps in our day, and finally, we looked at the ultimate horizon of our legacy. You now possess the tools to silence the cloud and master the clock. You are no longer a victim of distraction. You are the architect of your time. But I want to leave you with one final thought before you take off your headphones and return to the fray. The goal of this audiobook was not to make you into a robot. The goal of efficiency is not to cram more work into your day so you can produce more for someone else. The goal of efficiency is to liberate you. We manage our time so we can stop thinking about time. We create structure so we can experience freedom. We say no to the noise so we can say yes to the life that is actually happening right in front of us. Knowledge without execution is merely entertainment. To ensure these principles stick, I have designed a 7-day memory plan for you. I want you to focus on just one of these mantras each day for the next week. Do not try to do it all at once. Just let this one thought guide your actions for 24 hours. Listen closely and perhaps repeat these in your mind. Day 1. My attention is my currency. I will not spend it on things I do not value. Today, I keep my wallet closed to strangers. Day 2. Clutter in the cloud is clutter in the mind. Today, I will clear the digital debris to make room for my own thoughts. Day 3. I am a master of the one. Multitasking is a myth. Today, I do one thing at a time, and I do it with excellence. Day 4. I win the morning to win the day. Today, the first hour belongs to me, not to my screen. Day 5. I protect my focus. Deep work is my superpower. Today, I build a wall around my most important task. Day 6. I have the courage to say no. A no to the do-it is a yes to the great. Today, I choose my boundaries. Day 7. I rest to restore, not to escape. Today, I disconnect from the machine to reconnect with myself. The world will not stop trying to steal your time. The notifications will keep coming. The emails will keep piling up. The algorithm is designed to be smarter than you, but it is not wiser than you. You have the power to turn it off. You have the power to look up. You have the power to own your life. Go make it count. You have the blueprint. Now it is time to build the life. If this book gave you clarity, please consider leaving a review and sharing it with a friend who is drowning in distraction. Join our community of focused achievers by subscribing for more updates. Here's to your time, and here's to your life.